Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. A couple of months ago, I bought some stuff off of Temu, and I thought we need to take a closer look at this. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Temu is a site similar to AliExpress, and they sell stuff cheap. I think I paid $2 or $3 for each of these cards. And one of the things that happens is it's not uncommon to actually have these things misreport the size that they are. And so it might be a 32 gig card on the box, but it might actually have 4 gigs or 16 gigs or whatever, just to save some space. And one of the interesting things, and people are going to disagree with me, but this is absolutely 100% true. If you buy fake media, it will format to the size that it says it is. And so you'll copy files on there. It'll look like they're working. You can even copy files that are bigger than the format, and it looks like the card will happily take them until you try to get them back, and then all of a sudden they'll just be corrupt. But you will have no idea that the card you bought actually is smaller than what you thought it was. So I am going to use a new tool to the market, completely free, called ValiDrive. And what it does is it writes little 4K bytes of pseudo-random noise. And the pseudo-random noise part is important because the drive can actually predict through caching what you're going to write and get it back to you. And so you could write little 4K files normally all over the whole drive and think that you're testing the drive, but you're not truly exercising the drive. It's the pseudo-random noise part that is very important to making sure that the drive is actually doing what it says that it does. And I'm not going to get into all the details in that. I'll have a link to the software. You can check it out. But we're going to test these cards, and I don't know, we've got 2 of them here branded Lenovo, which actually, looking at the card itself, I'm not 100% sure that this card even says Lenovo on the card itself. But that's kind of interesting. So we're going to test those. And then while I'm here, I've got a 240 gig Vulcan SSD from Amazon, and I have the SanDisk Ultra 32 gig cards that are the ones I use for my business. And so I'm going to just test those and see if they check out as well. So we're going to open these things up and we're going to get them in the computer. And I'm not going to sit here and show you every single test, but we'll just start running them and I'll come back and tell you what I found. So this one here seems to be the most dubious. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one on camera because it doesn't look like through the packaging that it actually says Lenovo on the card itself. Let's take a look here. What do we have? No, just ThinkPlus. And I mean, that could be a Lenovo logo in Chinese or whatever, but I don't think so. The other one at least has the decency to fake the word Lenovo on it. This one at least has the decency to not really have an important brand name on it. So anyway, we're going to put them through their paces. All right, we're going to head over to grc.com. That's right, this guy is so OG that he has a 3-letter domain name. And we're going to go to validrive.htm. That's right, he is so OG that there's no need for an L or a PHP or anything like that after it. Validrive.htm, and you can read a little bit about the methodology of what's going on here. You can download this utility, and if you know anything about this guy, he's getting 1,100 downloads of this thing a day. If you know anything about this guy, the fact that he coded it in assembly means that we have a 94 kilobyte file that doesn't even need to be installed. So much respect to my brother. So we're going to load this thing up, and then we're going to tell it that UAC can let it through. And we've got ValiDrive here. There's going to be some methodology that will explain what's going on there. We're going to check a USB drive, which keeps jumping off my page. Introduce the drive you want to validate. So if the drive is currently, physically remove it from the computer. And so this is one of the reasons why this doesn't work under Wine. Wine doesn't have the ability to tell that you're gonna that you're inserting something like this. So we're gonna push it in, device inserted. That's pretty slick. I like that, Steve. So we're going to validate that drive, and it says it's a 32 gigabyte drive, and so let's let it go. And you can see it's randomly accessing around the drive, so that it uses all the different parts of the drive to make sure that there's not any kind of hinkiness going on. Now, I will say this is one of the best torture tests for a drive because the fact is, when you go from reading to writing, there's a little charge pump in a lot of these things that needs to charge up and get the higher voltage to allow the thing to write. And so by going from reading to writing, you have to dump that voltage when you go back to reading. So by going reading to writing, you're actually getting a pretty good speed test of the drive as well, which is pretty slick. All right, so it looked like this one passed the test. I guess there's no sense in faking a 32 gig drive. So we're going to go through the rest of them and just see what we get. All right, so I had no intention of screen recording the other instances, but as I popped in the second drive, the second Lenovo drive, this is pretty interesting. So we are going to pop it in, and we're going to tell it to check that drive. Look how much faster it is. So even though the other drive was valid, it was incredibly slow. And I'm going to guess that the packaging on that thing said that it was a higher speed rating and stuff than it really was, because that thing finished in seconds for 64 gigs, where the other one probably took a minute for 32 gigs. So that is interesting. So this last 64 gig card that I put in took way longer to detect how big it was and stuff than the one I had just put in. So we're going to go ahead and validate, and I'm going to guess. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Right off the bat, we've got a fake. And it is taking forever. Yeah, so that last one here, not good. So you've got some writing going on up here, but down here you can see that we've got a little bit over half of the space is invalid. And it was slow. It was so much slower. And it was that write time. It's the capacitors that need to charge up every single time to punch through that layer and write that NAND or whatever storage medium they're using. Just took for freaking ever. So yeah, not good. All right, so let's start off by looking at the ones from Temu. We have the 32 gig card, which was good and tested good, but was slow as frick. And it says that it is a U1, which this one is a U3, and so this technically should be about 1/3 the speed of this one, but in reality, it was probably 1/5 or even 1/10 the speed. But it did work, did have the right capacity, so no complaints there. All right, this one on the other hand was completely fake, or I guess I should say half fake. Although they listed as a 64 gig card, it only had 32 gig of capacity, and had you put important memories or important data on there, you would most likely lose it. So this one, total garbage. As promised, I did go through the ones that I buy, and I do tend to buy, one of the reasons why I don't have a ton of fake things here is I do tend to buy well-reviewed quality things, and so this was that 3-pack of SanDisk, and they all tested fine. They were fast, they worked great, and no worries here on these. I'll have a link to these in the description. So right here, these two are both listed as Class 10 SanDisk, and as you can see, the colors on them are a little bit different. If I get them a little closer together, you can see that one is red, one's a little bit more brown, and it turns out that the 64 gig card was way slower than the 32 gig card by like orders of magnitude, even though they are rated the same. Now you might see XC and HC. HC cards only go up to 32 gigs, so everything above 64 is labeled as extended capacity, where the 32 is high capacity. So two supposedly brand name cards, both bought from Amazon, both Class 10, vastly different performance. And ironically, I did have two by the same company, Transcend, which I've never had bad experiences with, but both of these actually came back fake. We've got the Transcend micro SD card U1, we've got the Class 10 standard SD card, and both of them came back fake with only a couple of gigs on each one. All right, so I went through and tested some various thumb drives and SSDs and even some M.2 drives, and I thought this one might wind up being a fake because it's pretty slow, and the test bore that out. But I really do think for the most part, you're going to find fakes the bigger the drive reports itself. So when you start getting drives that call themselves 1 terabyte and they have the ability to put a 32 gig or a 128 gig NAND chip in there, then that seems to be where they try to get away with one as much as possible. But this one's fine. This random cheapo 4 gig drive is fine. I will say the guy that wrote the software, I think, bought 12 drives off Amazon, and 11 of them wound up being fake. So definitely consider testing them. So we'll get over to that in a minute. This Team Group SSD came back fine. Samsung 850 came back fine. Lexar came back fine. My M.2 drives came back fine. I think the biggest thing is, and I'm going to get into a couple tools in a minute, but I think the biggest thing is that you would basically, with a freeware tool like this that takes about a minute to test, you would be foolish to buy mass storage and not test it. This is prevalent and your data is way too important. You know, you stick important files on here, it looks like your 100 gigabyte file copies, and it turns out this thing is only 64. You get to where you're trying to go and it doesn't work. And that is horrible. People have their, you know, their wedding photos and their photos of their kids and irreplaceable things on this medium, and it's just foolish to not at least try your best to check it and to see if it is what it says it is. So I want to go over a couple of tools real quick. I went through so many SD card readers in probably the last 3 or 4 years, and I finally settled on this one. Actually, what I decided to do was to look up what is it that photographers use, because they use them about as much as I do. And so this one, it doesn't have as many formats. It's got SD, micro SD, and compact flash, but that's what I use. And so this USB-C Lexar thing is legit. It just sits here on my desk and it weighs something, and it's just been fantastic. Now when it comes to testing, this thing tests USB drive, so if you want to test an SSD, then you need to make it a USB drive. Cheapest way to do that is with something like this, what is it, Lumsing or whatever, and this cable I would say is fine. You know, it's going to plug in here. Now I will say that if a drive requires a lot of power, which is more likely a spinning drive, you may not get away with this, but for most part, testing SSDs and stuff like that, this is what I would call fine. If you want to step up, I really do like this Fideco, and this is a dual SATA thing here, and it's got a charger on the front, USB port. So most of the time this is plugged into my computer, and then something else will get plugged in the front of it. It's got a charging port again, USB 3.0 and 12 volts powered, so that even the most power hungry drives can be tested. And beyond that, the last thing I like is this thing here. This is the retop for NVMe /SATA SSD, and that's important. If you have an NVMe drive, which I don't have one sitting next to me, there are two formats. There's NVMe and there's SATA, and they're keyed differently, and most things can only read the NVMe ones, but I've seen more fakes in the SATA ones. So this thing is really nice, USB-C, and it's got USB-A and a C adapter here. And so this thing's fantastic. It just sits up here on your desk. You pop the little drive in there and you can test it that way. So all these things are vital tools if you want to make sure that you are absolutely getting what you pay for. And I appreciate you guys watching, and let me know if you guys have had any fake drives. So, hey, have a great day.